In today's video, we're going to learn in Revit how to create a three-dimensional 2x2 lay-in ceiling. So we're going to start with a new project. I'm going to pick architectural. And just to demonstrate, the reason we do this is in 3D modeling, 3D coordination, out of the box Revit ceilings don't show up very well. So what we're going to do, let me get my project browser in here. We're going to create a room. And then we are going to go to the ceiling plans. We're going to add a ceiling. We're going to pick a compound 2x2 ACT, automatic ceiling. You can see we put it in there. Now we'll create a 3D view. And you can see the ceiling's in there, but it has no texture to it. It's just basically an extrusion. What we want is the actual ceiling 2x2 grid in a 3D view. So the first thing we have to do is create the profile for the T, for the T-bar ceiling. So we'll go up here to File, New, Family, and then this is not actually going to be a Revit ceiling. It's going to be a sloped glazing, which is a roof. So what we want to do is create a mullion profile. So we're going to select Profile Mullion for our family. So you can see for the mullion, it's got exterior, interior, and then this obviously center, left, and right. So we need to basically create the T of the T-bar. So I'm going to create some reference planes here to work from. Now keep in mind that the actual room is the interior, so this is somewhat upside down from what you would expect. So let's put some dimensions on here. We want that to be equal about the center line. And let's give these some names. We'll call this width. And we'll call this height. And then we'll set the dimensions for these. The height of these is 1 13/16, and then the width is 15/16. Let's remove the constraints and see what happens here. Alright, apparently we missed a dimension here. So let's call this width. There we go. So now we just trace the outline of the profile. Just use a line. Okay, and then we copy this. I'm not sure the exact thickness. I use 1/16 of an inch. Now this one is, we need to offset around the center, so I'm going to move it first 1/32, and then we'll copy it back 1/16. Okay, and then we have to do some trimming, so we're going to split this one right here, select our corners, and then we need to fill in the ends. Now the one thing I like to do, and this is totally my preference, you can do however you want, I like this side of the T-bar to be at the ceiling elevation, so I'm going to move this. And then we just save it. And so we are in Profiles, Curtain Wall, and we'll call this T-bar. Well, let's call it Ceiling T-bar. Okay, we are now going to load this into the project. And now we're at level 1. We, instead of doing this in a reflective ceiling view, we're going to do it in the plan view, so we have to change our view range. So right now the associated level is 7'6", and our cut plane is set at 4. We're going to make that unlimited, and I'm going to put the ceiling at 8 feet, but I'm going to put the cut plane at 10. So now under the Architecture tab, I'm going to create a roof. It says you got the roof on the lowest level. Do you want to move to level 2? No. So I'm going to use the basic roof. I want to clear the defined slope because we're not going to have any slope. Base offset from level, I'm going to set at 8 feet. I'm going to apply it. I'm going to select my walls. Hover over one wall. When it's highlighted, hit tab. It picks the rest. Make sure the pink line is on the interior. Click OK. And there you have it. So the next thing we're going to do is change the basic roof to slope glazing. Now you didn't really notice any change there, but what we want to do is edit the type, and notice there's no grid on this glazing, so we're going to change to a fixed distance on grid 1, 2 feet. We're not going to adjust for mullion size. I'm going to do the same thing on grid 2, fixed distance, 2 feet. Not going to adjust for mullion size. Click OK. And there we have it. Now, why do we not see any grid? Go back into edit type. Interior type, none. We have not selected a grid. So let's just go ahead. Notice my profile hadn't shown up here yet. So we need to figure out how to get this in place. So what we'll do is go to our families. We've loaded this family into it. We go to curtain wall mullions, rectangular mullions, select 1-inch square. Let's duplicate it. We'll call it T-bar ceiling. And then we double click it to get the profile up. And our ceiling T-bar shows up. We just select it. Okay. So now we go back. Notice we selected the compound ceiling. We don't want that. Let's set the ceiling at 8'6" so we can get some distance between them. Let's go to 3D and change to wireframe. Ah, okay. That's the problem. Alright, if we go back here, we select the ceiling, let's change it to 7'6". Now you can see our slope glazing. Now we're going to edit the type. Notice we still have none. So we're going to duplicate this and call it T-bar. And then for T-bar, we're going to select T-bar ceiling for all of these. Okay, notice it selects T-bar ceiling. Let's go back to the 3D level. Now if I change this back to slope glazing, I get a bunch of errors to ask me to delete mullions. And this is why I created the separate type under slope glazing. So this one doesn't have any mullions in it. What you're seeing here, this texture, is actually the panels in the slope glazing. Now typically what I do is I'll use this to line up with the architectural. So let me go back to the reflected ceiling plan. Let's set the ceiling at 8 feet, get them lined up. This one is actually lined up. So we'll go back to level 1. Let me change this to a wireframe view so I can see everything. And let's cut a quick section through here. We'll go to view. Notice this is my ceiling elevation. These are my panels and they're down below the ceiling elevation. I want them up into the grid. So I have to come back down to here and say, let's look at curtain panels. Pick glazed. Let's duplicate this. Call it ACT panel. And then we'll edit this. Notice the offset on this is 1 1/4 inches. So we're going to change this to -0, 0, 1/4, and we're going to make the thickness 0, 0, 1/2. Material still glass. So now we're going to pick this and we're going to edit the type. Can't remember where I picked the panel. Oh, curtain panel, none. Duh. Alright, so we're going to use ACT panel. Click OK. And now notice it's up into the grid. So then we've got one other thing to demonstrate here. I'm going to choose maybe trying to select the ceiling itself. Oh, here we go. So notice that the slope glazing doesn't quite match up with the ceiling panel grid. So what we're going to do now, we have to adjust the ceiling to match this. If we're matching an existing architecture, if you're building this from scratch, you can make your adjustments here. But I would adjust the way you want your 3D ceiling to lay out before you switch it over to 3D, the actual 3D ceiling. In other words, leave it on just slope glazing with no mullions, because once you change it to mullions, you can't move them. They're all locked, and it really becomes a pain. So we're going to select this. This is our ceiling. Okay, here's our grid. What we want to do is measure the distance between here and here. And we're going to copy this total length. It's 8 inches. And then we're going to go back here. We're going to select our, and here where we have our offset. We'll put this value in. We'll apply it. We picked the wrong one, so we'll apply it here. Change that back to 0. We apply it, and then we have to measure the distance going the other way. Copy that. And then we go back to our ceiling, enter in our offset, apply it, and now we have it lined up. So now we can go back, pick our slope glazing, change it to T-bar, and there we have our T-bar ceiling. And if we look at our section, I'm going to hide this because it's getting in the way. Whoop, I hid them both. Oh, okay. So you can see we have our T-bar, we have our T-bar frame, we have our panels which sit on top of it. And in the 3D, you can see that we have the actual textured grid layout. And that is how you create a 3D ceiling in Revit.